Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'd like to ask Rachel to call for a quorum.
Yes, good morning, Chair Balducci,
Here.
Regent Santiago,
Here.
Regent Stewart. Absence is noted. Regent Yang. Absence is noted. Chair Gui.
Present.
Thank you. Welcome Chancellor Maduco, our ex officios. And welcome Regent Williams.
Good morning.
Good morning. Our ex officios, Brendan Cunningham, our university presidents, President Toro, President Bernal, our CFOs on the line and staff, and ex officio Charlene Casamento. Regent Balducci, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move for approval of the minutes from the August 25th meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. We have 4 action items before us today, and we'll go over each. And I would ask at this time for Lloyd to begin with the food service and tier 2 fees.
Yes, sir. Excuse me one second. Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Regents. Good morning, colleagues. The first item that we bring to the committee for approval are the proposed increases in our food service fees. You may know, Mr. Chairman, that each of our universities charge separate food service fees because they have separate contracts with their food service provider. And those contracts call for increases commensurate with the food inflation that we all are facing here these days. So, Mr. Chairman, you will see on the screen that we are not seeking an increase in tuition. We are not seeking an increase in mandatory fees. We are not seeking an increase in housing fees, but only certain specific fees where costs are increasing and our universities want to increase their fees to cover those costs. So what you'll see on the screen is that Central Connecticut State University is proposing an increase of $196, which amounts to a 3.5% increase. Eastern Connecticut State University is proposing an increase of $204, which amounts to a 2.9% increase. Southern Connecticut State University is proposing an increase of $272, which amounts to a 3.9% increase. And finally, Western Connecticut State University is proposing an increase of $300 in their food service fee, which amounts to a 4.3% increase. That concludes my presentation on food service fee. Did you want to vote on that separately before we get to the tier 2?
We do.
Or have any questions?
I'm going to make a comment.
Okay.
We have 4 different contracts, 4 different universities. I want to throw out the thought that in the future, at least, we think about or talk about having one contract for all 4 universities. I think we can get a better price if we have that kind of thing, that kind of a contract, as opposed to 4 individual ones. I just make that, and now I've moved that we accept the food service fees. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion beside my comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Accepted. The tier 2 fees.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So 2 of our universities are proposing either new tier 2 fees or increased in existing tier 2 fees. To be clear, tier 2 fees tend to be specific fees to cover specific costs for a given academic program or a given service. So you'll see on the screen here, sir, that Central Connecticut State University is proposing a new tier 2 fee for its Doctor of Nurse Anesthesia Practice program and an increase for their their BSN lab fee. For their Doctor of Nurse Anesthesia practice, the DNAP fee, they are proposing a $300 fee, which is a new fee for this program. And for their BSN lab fee, their current lab fee is $325 for full-time students and $27 for part-time students. They are proposing a $125 increase for their full-time fee to $450 and a $13 increase for their part-time students, increasing it to $50.
Okay, that's a substantial amount. Why do they need 125 as opposed to where they are now? 325 as opposed to the 450?
Well, in terms of the $300 fee, that's a new fee for their DNAP program. This fee covers patient safety platform for their subscriptions. It covers their experiential learning at the New Britain Museum of American Art. It covers virtual reality software.
Can someone please with the dog? Sorry, guys.
And it helps pay for a writing center component to their program, as well as expenses associated with their simulation equipment and mandatory full day orientations. In terms of the BSN lab fee, they are facing increasing costs associated with their high fidelity simulators and consumables. In these healthcare programs, consumables need to be replaced every term, every semester. Consumables such as IV tubing, needles, syringes, all of which must be replaced. This fee will also cover the increased fee for the BSN lab, will also cover faulty and outdated equipment for their SIM juniors, their IV pumps, and other training tools that need to be replaced in a timely manner semester by semester. Moreover, they face increased costs associated with their critical learning platforms, including their body swabs for their virtual reality simulation modules, their critical thinking simulations, the software itself, as well as comprehensive testing, prep and remediation and analytics for their technology platforms.
Okay, no problem with the nursing piece. The other piece you're saying, and all these comments as far as new needs and costs are in that $125 increase from the $325 to the $450.
That's correct, sir.
So I guess I'm just trying to sorry.
Go ahead, Ari, you have a comment?
No, I'm just trying to understand, are these new programs? So for example, is the BSW and the MSW at Southern, are those new programs or existing programs we're adding a new fee?
These are, I will have to defer to my CFO at Southern. Lillian Wengaji, are you on the call?
I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
So for the Masters of Social Work fee, it has to do with accreditation and requirements that we need to meet. So we needed placement software. So it's truly meeting costs that are newly required for us to continue to meet accreditation requirements. For the occupational therapy, that's a new program. So this cost was actually approved and were part of the pro forma when the program was approved earlier. Just didn't call it out specifically. So this is a new program. So it requires specialized tools, clinical placements, as you all know. So that fee covers that for the occupational therapy program. For the orientation fee, this is just to address inflation. That fee has remained unchanged for us since 2004. So the rising cost of food and supplies related to supporting both first year and transfer students has changed quite a good bit since 2004 when we changed that. So this is just to deliver an acceptable level of service for students in terms of orientation. I do see Sandy on the call if she wanted to add anything to the social work and occupational therapy program comments.
Did you say that the orientation fee hasn't changed since 2004?
Correct.
What was it in 2004 then?
150.
Okay, okay. Got it. Thank you.
Lillian, I think you did a nice job summarizing. I'm happy to take questions. The cost of delivering our social work programs has increased dramatically, and that really relates to our clinical placements that are required for those students. So that really is an opportunity to make sure that we're providing those services to a very large number of students.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
I appreciate all the explanations, which are very informative and thorough. Was there some looking at comparable fees in other similarly situated institutions as to lab fees? The social work, master social work, nurse anesthesia practice, just so that we know that we're in the ballpark. Does that make sense? I mean, I know that we're analyzing this in terms of your own specific costs, but I just wonder if there's any review of similar fees at other institutions.
So I can answer that just from the work I did on the healthcare task force report last year. The master social work and occupational therapy fees, those for a long time were uniquely Southern programs, and the occupational therapy being a new program. There isn't any other in the system. Central now has an MSW, so we, I guess, could have coordinated with them to see if they wanted to do that. Central may decide to follow suit with this approach, but we have a very, very large program, and this was essential for us to do it at this time. The BSW fee, we're leading the way on that approach to the clinical pressures. And again, we have BSW programs at all of our CSUs, and there may be a decision in the future that those institutions want to take this approach as well. But I'm not aware that there are fees for those programs. The nursing, most of us charge $500 per semester per student already. Central really, Zolma can speak for this, or other staff, is really just coming up closer to where the other institutions are.
If I could, my question actually was as to other colleges or universities outside of our system, not within.
Oh.
So in other words, for private institutions within Connecticut that might offer programs, or in private or state institutions in surrounding states.
We did do that analysis in our proposal. We've been trying to get this through for 3 years. We haven't had an opportunity to come to you with fees for quite a while. So, the tuition is so much higher at those programs that they really handle the costs of delivering their programs differently in some cases. But we are not at a step with healthcare program fees or social work fees. We're definitely on the low end right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Regent Williams, appreciate the question. We can do more benchmarking, not only within our system, but across the state, so that we can make sure that our program fees are competitive. As was mentioned by President Bomer, our tuition is quite a bit lower, and tuition and mandatory fees tend to cover general costs associated with running our institutions. It's the program fees that we rely on to cover those specific costs, some of which don't have additional fees, but especially in the space of healthcare, where we have to have equipment often required by the accreditors. We have to pay for those costs that the accreditors require, and we tend to apply specific fees to cover those costs. Sometimes they don't cover all of the costs. There's still a sharing of the cost between the institution and the student. But sometimes, if we don't raise these fees over time, we need to raise them to keep up with inflation.
Good, thanks.
Any other comments? Moving on, then we're talking about Western having a replacement fee also of lost cards, moving it from $15 to $20. And that all CSU credit cards, interest rate move from 2.95% to 3.0%. And that would take care of our tier 2 fees.
That's correct.
Any other comments? We have to vote on this as an individual item, I would think.
I believe these can be voted on.
Let's vote on them individually. That way we know if there's a problem anywhere along the line. We did that once and we ran into a couple of bubbles as we moved. So why don't we move on to food service and tier 2 fees? I would make a motion that we move this item, advance this item or accept it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, CSCU 20 bond reallocation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may recall that some time ago, the legislature passed a program called CSCU 2020, which provided upwards of $1 billion in capital funds to support $2 billion of properties that we have across the state. That program included a number of different projects, and at least one, the School of Business, the new School of Business at Southern Connecticut State University, was a project that was completed back in FY 20 and 21 for $48.7 million, excuse me. That left $3.2 million in the project budget. It was dedicated to that project. That project is complete. We would like to, Southern is proposing to reprogram that savings so that it can support its code compliance and infrastructure deferred maintenance program.
Thank you, and that's important. And I reread this several times because I think it's one of the first times I've ever read where we are not over budget, but actually completing it within or less than the demand. So the 3.2 million to go with, to be used toward code compliance, something that really needs to be done. It's something all the universities and colleges need to do. And I would move that item, pass that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. The motion passes. The third is the banner piece. Would you like to just go through that quickly?
I'd be happy to, sir. We have spoken in the last few board meetings and finance committee meetings that part of what we want to use system office reserves for are those things that the institutions require but have not budgeted for. Every year, our institutions budget for the service, the annual service fee to run their enterprise resource planning and student information system called Banner. Well, Banner will be transitioning from a cloud-hosted environment to a software as a service environment. This is a change that we have little choice on, Mr. Chairman. So because the universities and the colleges had not budgeted for this particular changeover, we propose to use $11 million in system office reserves and $4 million in reprogram bond funds to support the $15 million implementation costs for 4 of our universities and for CT State. You'll see on the screen that the budget for that $15 million is allocated accordingly, $3 million apiece. We have already begun implementing some of this, particularly at Southern Connecticut State University, but you'll see that all 4 of our universities have signed purchase order commitments in an amount close to $3 million, and then they will be due some balance that adds up to $3 million per institution. So we are proposing not only to spend $11 million of system office reserves, but we are proposing to allocate it in the way shown on the screen.
Those transition funds are one-time dollars, though, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The $4 million bond money, would just restate where that's coming from?
Sure. We had $4 million or more in what was called property acquisition funds. This has been a few years we've been sitting on these funds because we have not been allowed to acquire property, we were able to get the General Assembly to reprogram those dollars for more general purposes. As it happens, it hadn't been tapped, and we propose to use it to supplement the $11 million in undesignated reserves to support the $15 million cost of moving toward banner sets.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions,
I have a question.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep. Ari, as a member of the Technology Committee, do you have visibility on the other side of this strategy in terms of, do we have a cadence and a rhythm around the banner implementation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, well, I don't know that we have a full rhythm on the implementation itself, to be honest. We have gone in depth on if this was the right approach, was there any other option? So I would say that the approach in terms of the banner upgrade, the approach to driving that upgrade has been, you know, reviewed and vetted, and it is the best approach we have at our disposal, just sort of given all the factors around it. I think there's opportunity too on the flip side, post transition, to use the software a lot more, but that's probably a separate conversation. In terms of the actual cadence to do the migration, I don't know that we have something fully baked on that.
Yeah, it may be, I'll let you, as the Technology Committee, and Mike, you're involved in those meetings, I know, with Ted and Ari and others, but I do think there should be some sort of a formal rhythm around updating and kind of fence post decisions or discussions, so that the board really takes ownership to help the system implement this, and also to celebrate the milestones that I know we will achieve through this.
The last technology meeting, we provided some update materials, and we'll be scheduling a meeting with Ari separately to provide those materials to him and sort of go through them.
Yeah.
There's a steering committee that we put together over top of the five, what's going to be 5 separate implementation projects.
Yeah.
To deal with those larger issues. And but we will provide, and we'll develop better views if we feel they're inadequate. I'll develop into Technology Committee.
Is each institution an individual instance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Mike, I mean, this is a double project, right, Mike? We've got the upgrade that's discussed, but we've also got the integration project we're doing simultaneously, correct?
And what Ari's referring to is the implementation project is actually the simplest part of the transition, where we have Banner in service today, and we're going to have Banner in service tomorrow.
Right.
There are differences, though, between the way we're running it today and which is technically being sunset, and what we're moving to. And the major implication is that customizations, which were encouraged and supported in the old regime, are not supported in the new software as a service. That's one of the key differences. We get benefit from that, but it will have a definite impact on business processes across the system for each of these 5 projects. The 5 projects are operating with some degree of independence because, for example, Central has their project, Western, Eastern. They have project teams, which I provide some support to, but they're largely independent project teams. They have a steering committee for each one of these projects. Those steering committees are functional representation from the institution, across the institution for the project. And then on top of it, we have a system level steering committee that currently is constituted of the CIOs across the system. I've invited participation more broadly than that. The local areas will make some decision if they want greater participation than that. But already we've constituted with the CIOs. That is the group that I will take information from and bring to the Technology Committee. And that's the group that's going to work with the Technology Committee across the entire project.
Good.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike, All right.
So in the end, though, we're going to go from multiple implementations to effectively an integrated implementation.
So we're going with the as we discussed.
Yep.
From 5 separate instances
Yeah.
to tenants, separate tenants, but the project work that we have put out in the charge is for those tenants to be not differentiated, right? We're trying to position this work so that we have options going forward. And one of those options going forward is to consolidate further into a single tenant. But currently, the project work is to make those tenants execute without differentiation. One, to remove friction as individuals move between systems, or to allow for reporting longitudinally across it.
What's the integration to?
The integrations are today, Banner is just one product amongst a constellation of products that institutions use to operate. Data goes into Banner, data comes out of Banner. Those are integrations.
Who's the host?
Oh, they're in various places. For example,
Who controls the master data?
the master data for Banner is in Banner. But let me just give you an example. So Blackboard is another key system. It's a learning management system. And there's an integration where roster information comes from Banner and goes into Blackboard. That's an integration.
Is it bi-directional push?
Grades come back. The intention is for grades to come back. Right now, people manually put their grades in. The intention is to look at things like products like Grade Journey. So rosters go from Banner into Blackboard.
Yeah.
Grades would then go from Blackboard into Banner.
But that's not currently happening, Marty.
The backwards one, the one from Blackboard into Banner isn't currently happening, but we want to facilitate that as part of these projects.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of value in rabbit holes, and this probably isn't the data go through it all.
Sure.
But I think that the board wants to really oversee a really successful implementation and be part of it. How well these things go relate to how well the academic, administrative, and student experience goes,
Yep.
and how well our investment goes. So
Sure.
early innings, I want to make sure that we have good cadence and rhythms around this to make sure it goes well. That's all. John?
Yeah, I'll add, I think right now, and it's to no fault of anyone, this is a technology / IT project. And as a system, we want to move to a digital transformation journey, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about the end user being our students, right? The end user being our employees who utilize Banner and all of these systems on a daily basis, right? And what does that look like, right? So this is one significant component in terms of how we fund it, how we implement it, how we update our regions. But at the end of the day, if I'm a faculty member, if I'm an advisor, how is this going to make my day-to-day life easier and more efficient?
Any other further comments? Brendan, is it Brendan?
Brendan.
Brendan Cunningham?
Yes, if I could just address that question asked by Chancellor Maduko. I don't know how true this is on any of the other campuses, but I struggle with the fact that rosters are not actually integrated to our email system. So every semester I have to populate my own email distribution lists with rosters, and then as students go in and out, I have to update that. I've worked in higher education for many years now, and this is the only place I've ever had to do that. The typical response from IT folks is just use Blackboard for email, but I would like to use my email in my email. And so that is just an on the ground truth I wanted to share.
Thank you, Brendan. Other comments?
I think CFO Wengaji from Southern.
Okay, I can't see that.
Lillian, you want to go ahead?
Sure, it was just a question to Michael, and I think it aligns with what Chancellor Maduka just shared. In discussing that the executives committee at the system level is made of CIOs, I want to advocate that CFOs are actually a very critical component of that. This really is not just an IT project. It really transforms everything about the university operations. So I would like to see that steering and system level really include and have a recognition that it's not just the CIOs, and that the CFOs are a very critical part of that team because it affects everything about operations in our campuses.
I believe that is being planned. CFO Wanjagi, please, thank you for that comment. We have asked the presidents to determine who would represent their institutions on the system-wide steering committee, but thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Hearing none, I would then move passage of the banner implementation program. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passage successful, yes, it's passed. I would just reiterate that we moved passage for food service, passage of the tier 2 fees, passage of the CSU 2020 bonding reallocation, and passage of the banner implementation program. I used terms that I shouldn't have before. I want to make sure I clarified it with passage of those items. The last item we have under action items is partnership agreements. We have several. The leader in those areas has been Central. They have 2 more programs before us, and we have 3 programs from Western. And I understand President Bernal would like to speak to that. And I would turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Balducci. So I'll be brief. You know, one of the, in talking with Dr. Blanchard and the Chancellor about setting these into context on how we're pursuing these at WestCon, as well as our broader strategy to close what we are entering this year with a $23 million structural deficit. So we've developed a 17-lever plan framework that helps us close that gap significantly over the course of the next few years. These kinds of arrangements are going to be essential for us to be able to generate revenue, which is the biggest lever that we have to closing that structural gap. Of course, we're going to continue to do cost containment. We have a massive restructuring underway right now that will also save us a good amount of money as well. But the revenue generation piece is really going to be key in a really competitive marketplace, as you all know. So, you know, the discount programs, and I want to applaud my colleagues at Central for getting this started, are a small drop in the bucket on things that are going to help.
5%.
Right, the 5%, right? Understanding these are pilots. The way that these really become impactful to the bottom line are when we begin to scale them. So things like AFSCME's agreement with CT State or a CT State discount, those are sort of the big agreements that allow us to engage a large population of students that we can attract with a new pathway. So just wanted to put that on the table. You know, and as I was talking to some of my colleagues at the system office, I wanted to put out what WestCon is exploring as innovative pricing and delivery models. These are not academic programs yet, we'll get there. But these are things that will likely need thought participants from the board on, will certainly need your approval on, because they will be a different way of doing business. So just at a high level, you know, we're going to continue the partnership agreements. We're working with Nuvance and Northwell right now, but we're also looking at customized educational programs, working side by side with enterprise and business and building a program that is just for them that we deliver. Those things usually are at a discounted rate because you're working side by side with industry. You know, we're working on credit for higher on-the-job learning. So a company that currently delivers training, for example, how can we provide credit to that through one of our programs and have it become a WestCon offering? One of the biggest opportunities we have is really around cohort-based pricing. And so right now, for example, we're working with Nuvance and a number of companies in our region to create MBA programs for their entire company, where they will guarantee us 30 students every year to do an accelerated MBA program. Those are going to, if we get board approval, require flat fees. So something like $50,000 per course for up to 30 students. The risk is sort of mutual, right? Because if they only enroll 20 students, we make more money. If they they can only enroll 30 students. So they get a bit of a discount when we look at some of the tuition versus the sort of block fees that are coming up. And then, just a couple of other things that we're exploring are subscription-based tuition models for lifetime learning agreements and provisions, public-private partnership academies. Right now, we're working with Danbury Public Schools to think about dual enrollment in a new and different way that can allow a high school student in Danbury to achieve a high school degree, associate's degree, and bachelor's degree within 5 years. So it's they'll be 19 and already have a bachelor's degree, but these are going to take really innovative financing models. And then the last piece that I would share is that we're really working hard to think about things like guaranteed admission and tuition matching, particularly to increase the pipeline of pathways for some of our students. Of course, we'll have to think differently about non-credit programs as well and how we generate revenue from those. Those are things like micro-credentials and badges. One of the interesting things we're exploring around a different notion of dual enrollment. Right now, we're working with Danbury, City of Danbury, Danbury Police Department to potentially house the new police academy on our campus and enroll those cadets in both an academy and simultaneously a bachelor's degree program. And so because there's shared services, shared instructors, we'd have to look at a new revenue model for that could be shared between entities. So, these are about a dozen things we're exploring right now. That's a big deficit that we have. And they'll all require some creativity on how we negotiate some of these pilots with our partners. And at the end of it, I will say that even in the agreements you see today, we're trying to find a win-win situation for everyone. A little more winning on our side, we can make it happen, but a win-win situation for everyone within these. And we're hoping to be able to explore these and get the thought partnership from regions like you that understand finances far better than many of us.
And get out of debt.
That's the number one goal.
I'd like just a comment. So I thank you for the innovation. I know that there's a lot of people involved in this effort, but I think what you're really solving for is relevance. How relevant are you in the communities that you serve and the people that need to be served? And when your highest value is relevance, your outcomes will be sustainability. Fiscal and otherwise, right?
Absolutely.
Fiscal and otherwise. So keep pushing on that because I do think the modalities need to be re-energized from where we are today to where we're going in the future, right?
And those partnership agreements seem to be working well, again, as pilots or whatever, but, hopefully other universities and maybe Connecticut State can do the same kind of thing, which is, I think, an advantage for us. Even with the 5% reduction in tuition, we're making a whole bundle of money from the other side coming in. So I think that's very positive. Any other comments on the partnership agreements? Any of them, Centrals or
Dr. Funjagi has.
Westerns?
No, so that's
That's Brendan Cunningham, I'm sorry.
Professor Cunningham.
Could be an old hand.
Yeah, you're right, Marty. Old hand. Sorry.
I won't say an old hand, Brendan. I'm going to give you a compliment here. A former hand up. Former hand up.
Hearing none, then I would move passage of the partnership agreements before us. Any other, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion by any members? Hearing none, I would try your minds. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passage of the partnership agreements is complete. That completes our action items for today. We have several information items. I'm looking at the information person. Lloyd, would you go over those information items for us?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. You'll see on the agenda 3 informational items. 1, the partnership agreement ideas. That was what President Bernal just covered. Thank you, President. The other 2 are the System Office Reserves update and the enrollment report. You'll see on your screen now, Mr. Chairman, a summary of the System Office Reserves. At the top, in general, you'll see that for our undesignated balances, it amounts to $39.7 million. In terms of our designated balances, largely in the STIP account, that amounts to $89.5 million. The bottom panel shows how we propose to use the undesignated funds on the left-hand side and the designated funds on the right-hand side. We're proposing to use $37.3 million of the 39.7 for various purposes. And in terms of the designated balances, we've talked about this before, you've approved this already. We're proposing to use $28.3 billion for debt service relief for the universities in the current year. And then, of course, we've recently drawn down nearly $25 million of funds that were held, leaving $2.4 million in the undesignated balances and leaving $36.2 million in the designated balances, totaling $38.6 million total reserves at system office. I believe Chancellor Maduco wanted to address this particular point and the purposes for which we propose to use these funds.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Blanchard, and good morning, Joe Balducci. The topic of reserves for CSCU, both internally and externally, has been a very charged matter for well over a year. And I believe there's a lot of conflicting information out there as relates to the use of reserves and also the amount of reserves that we have, not only as a system, but among our member institutions. For the 26-27 biennium, CSCU will draw down $162 million of our reserves that help close our spending gap across our institution, across our system. That is significant, right? So our system, our institutions, we have committed to drawing down our reserves. That was something that obviously the governor's office and the legislature basically demanded of us during the biennial legislative session. Dr. Blanchard, not just now, but even previously, outlined the use of reserves for banner implementation and some of the other uses. What stood out to Dr. Blanchard's presentation that I think all of us need to pay attention to is, in terms of undesignated reserves for CSCU at the system office, is at the level of $2.4 million, right? So less than $3 million we have at the system office. We continue to receive encouragement and demand that somehow the system office is sitting on a treasure trove of reserves. That is not true, right? And I am concerned about the level of reserves that we have right now undesignated for a couple of reasons. One, we are in the middle of a federal shutdown, right? A federal shutdown is one of the reasons why you have reserves. If for some reason there is a disruption of funding from the federal government. Two, the passage of the big beautiful bill. Congress has yet to kind of iron out those details, right? But we know that state government is concerned about federal cuts, especially with Medicaid, that represents 24% of Connecticut state budget, and what that will mean with all available funding here in Connecticut, right? And then lastly, it is the middle of October. We are barely in this academic year, and we have $2.4 million as a system office, as if nothing else unforeseen is going to happen between now and June 30th of 26, right? So we have a responsibility as a system to be conservative when it comes to the use of our reserves, right? And to really better strategically tell our reserve story to state government and also to our internal stakeholders. Chair Balducci, for years, as long as I've been here, you remind us that reserves are one-time use. Once you spend it, it is gone. And we have a responsibility to each other to be judicious with that. I'm not casting aspersions towards anyone, right? But, our country is on fire right now. There is a lot of uncertainty. We do not know what's going to happen in future months. So I wanted to flag that and really encourage our entire system in partnership with our regions that we have to be more mindful as it relates to the use of reserves.
Thank you. Thank you, Chancellor. And I know this is information, but looking down at the proposed undesignated funds, we've already given Eastern $7 million. We've given Western $7 million. And we're proposing to give Western another $7 million next year, in 27. And we're giving, and I'd like this to explain why we're giving Eastern another 2.275 million this year on top of the $7 million.
Yeah. Now, in terms of the additional dollars to Eastern, I know that President Ismaili has, like any president, continues to advocate for his institution. And there were discussions that took place earlier in the summer. I wasn't privy to all those discussions, but I know the intentions are good from Eastern. But Dr. Blanchard, I know you have some information regarding the conversations with Dr. Ismaili and the needs that Eastern presented to the system office.
Yes, sir. What I understand Eastern is planning is to use in FY26, $1.75 million in scholarships, 0.4, which is $400,000 for system modernization, and $125,000 for academic program development. That totals the $2.275 million. What you will not see is that we've also provided Eastern with $2 million to help with their infrastructure improvements on their campus. These are bond dollars that are not on this screen. So the 2.275 million that you see on the screen represents 1.75 in scholarships, $400,000 in systems modernization, and $125,000 in academic program development.
That doesn't come out to 2.275, does it?
400,000 plus 125 is 500. You add that to 1.75, that's 225.
Okay, we're looking at 275.
275.
Yeah.
I may be doing the numbers wrong, but I'm pretty sure they add up, so.
Well, it's an information, I'm not gonna argue about it now, but we need more detail on that. It just doesn't make sense that we're doing them twice in the same fiscal year.
We'd be happy to provide you with additional detail.
Any other comments on on that item, the system office reserves? Hearing none, Lloyd, continue on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, for our last informational item, we'd like to present to the Finance Committee and the Regents our enrollment report. This is a report that we present every fall to give the Regents a view of our recent enrollments and other associated strategic metrics. By strategic metrics, I mean associated with the ACT framework, access, completion, and talent metrics. But before I report on the numbers, Chancellor Maduka wanted to speak to some of the challenges we face in terms of our enrollment reporting and what we'd like to do to expand that reporting.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Blanchard. CSCU and our 6 institutions, excuse me, we're one of the largest higher ed systems in New England, and we serve a diverse group of students that range from short-term credentials all to the highest level of education, doctoral programs. Additionally, I think the topic of our enrollment has been something that has frustrated, I think, many of us in terms of the number continues to change. It's at 65,000 students, it's 85,000 students. I had the opportunity during my first week in this role to meet with Jan Keene, and I simply just asked her and her team a question. How many people do we serve at CSCU unduplicated? So they took about a week, they used social security numbers, and their estimates for the 24-25 academic year at CSCU served over 100,000 individuals, right? Let me unpack that, right? So of the 100,000, about 85,000 students are in credit based programs, right? So those are associate degrees, those are certificates, those are bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. But remember, we are the driver of workforce development in the state of Connecticut, right? CT State provides professional development to state employees. All of our institutions provide non-credit programming, right? And our system serves on the Governor's Workforce Council, where we are charged to provide short-term credentials, right? So it's really important that we begin to better tell our story to state government, to our supporters, to our communities in terms of the number of people we serve. My definition of a student is a student, independent of what type of program they are enrolled in. Naugatuck Valley has been providing motorcycle classes for over 40 years. Those are students. Those are people that are seeking our services. So we will continue to work on how we frame enrollment. I know there are federal definitions. I know there are definitions per the Board of Regents. We will continue to comply with that, but we need to expand our viewpoint to ensure that we're capturing everyone's being served. So when working with state government, we can tell them about our value, but more importantly, how we continue to serve every single community here in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. And I think Senator Williams would agree with this. When you go before the legislature, you better have those numbers out. And I don't think we carry this flag high enough on the pole. And I don't mean the students that we're serving that are credit students. I'm talking about the men and women who are taking non-credit courses. But it costs money to produce those non-credit courses. And, you know, the legislature looks at it and you see, oh, they're doing 66,000 and they're getting full-time students and they're getting this amount of money. Well, it isn't 66,000. It's another 40,000 of non-credit. And you need to count that in. I look at you, Donnie, because I know you think the way I do on this one, wouldn't you say?
I would think that that's very true at our state universities, but especially true at our community colleges. Interesting to know whether all of those specific training sessions, in addition to certificate courses, et cetera, are showing up on the enrollment figures at that level.
Okay, good. Thank you for that, Don. Other comments? Hearing none, did you?
Yeah, this just comes back to the notion of relevance. Where are we relevant? How are we relevant? And it's a really important discussion for us to define.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, Chancellor. These are wonderful comments. With that, what I'd like to do is go ahead and show you the numbers. But before I show you the numbers, this simply provides a preview that speaks to the timing and the coverage of the data that I will show. You'll see in this chart, our enrollment data will cover the most recent enrollments based on our census reports for the current fall semester. Now, because we have a census date for the universities, I believe is September 15th. Census date for CT State Community College at September 17th. We get those data in September. But Charter Oak State College, their census date is October 31st. So we will not have their data until November, which is why I show the 2 check marks for the enrollment data. In terms of our strategic metrics for access data, we can report the current semester's data, but since we focus on enrollment first, which is the most important data, we don't do the sort of demographic data gather until around November. In terms of our second strategic area of focus, completions, obviously completions will represent what happened in the spring during graduation season. So you'll see that our graduation data, our completions data will be provided in October, which covers the last academic year. And finally, when we speak to talent, right now we're reporting talent data in terms of for what programs are our graduates, are our employed graduates from. I mangled that grammatically, I apologize, but the point here is the direction we want to move, consistent with Chancellor Maduco's comments, is to show which areas, which industries are our graduates working in, and are they working in those areas that are important to the governor's workforce strategy. And so we're not there yet. I won't show those data here, but that's the direction we're moving in. And those data will come 2 years in arrears at least, because those data have to be matched up with the Department of Labor data because it takes a little time, even after they graduate. It takes a little time to pull that for the Department of Labor, to pull that data together and then merge it with our data for reporting purposes. So that's an overview of the coverage of these data and the timing of our ability to report these data. So with that preamble, I will go ahead and report on our enrollments. You will see the details on the screen, but in general, our enrollments are up about 7.2% system-wide from fall to fall, fall 24 to fall 25, the current semester. CT State's numbers are up about 4.3%. Charter Up is doing well, increasing their enrollments by 27.1%. And the universities are also doing well by increasing their enrollments by 9.8%. You'll see on the right-hand side that our graduate enrollments are also up at the universities, just slightly at 0.1%. But Charter Oak's graduate enrollments are also doing well with an increase of 38.6%. Certificates in general across the system are up 21.4%. Now, some might ask, are those enrollment increases driven by our dual and concurrent enrollments? These are the high school students that are taking college classes within our system. To some extent, the answer is yes. But I can tell you that all of our universities and CT State are doing quite well with their dual and concurrent enrollments. I am not showing it on the screen, but Central's one-year increase in their dual and concurrent enrollments is at 176%. Eastern Connecticut State University has increased their dual and concurrent enrollments by 52% in the past year alone. Southern has increased their dual enrollments by 76% in the past year alone. And Western has done very well at increasing its dual and concurrent enrollments by 128% in the past year alone. CT State, the leader in this effort, because of all of our 10,600 students or so, CT State represents about half of those dual and concurrent enrollments. So they are even up by 7% in this past year. So we are heading in the right direction as it relates to our enrollments. Let me now report on our strategic metrics. In terms of access, you'll see that what we are showing in terms of access are the Handley PAC numbers, the Pell percentage numbers, as well as our student diversity numbers, or students of color. And you'll see on the screen, you can look at the numbers for each of the individual institutions and campuses of CT State, but our Handley PAC numbers this past year are up 73.3%, which is fantastic. And thanks to the General Assembly for providing support in this area to our students. Our Pell percentages are up at CT State by 4.1%. They're up at Charter Oak by almost 12%. Our universities are only slightly down by less than 1%. In terms of our student diversity, we're proud to report that CT State is up by 6.7%. Charter Oak is up by nearly 6%. And our universities are increasing their student diversity by nearly 8.2%. So that captures the success we are accomplishing within the strategic access framework. In terms of our completions across the system, we are increasing our completions. We increased our completions by 7.3% across the system. That's graduations in spring 24 relative to graduations in spring 25. At CT State, our completions are up by 12%. At Charter Oak, they're up by 6.3%. And our university's completions are up by 3.2%. Again, you can see the specifics by program and across the campuses and institutions within the specific data provided. And so we feel like in the completions strategic area, we are also increasing our numbers. And finally, with retention and graduation rates, we're showing increases in our retention rates at CT State of about 4.6%. Increases in retention with Charter Oak, I'm sorry, this is a increase of 8.8%. And our universities are up slightly by 0.8% in terms of their retention fall to fall, returning from their first year in school to their second year in school, which is an important metric, not only for student persistence to graduation, but also for our budget standing. And finally, our graduation rates at all of our institutions except Charter Oak are up. CT State's graduation rates are up by nearly 39%, and our university graduation rates are up by 2%. Charter Oak's numbers are shown to have fallen from 64% graduation rate in the fall of 23 to 56% in the fall of 24. Charter Oak's graduation rates are a little anomalous because they have both a large number of transfers and a small number first-time, first-year students. So their numbers are a little up and down based on the cohort of that given year. Indeed, this past year, they had a single full-time, first-time student. Most of these numbers are being driven by their transfers to their program. So I wouldn't take much stock in those. I think the general enrollment numbers for Charter Oak are showing that they are attracting a great deal of business for their online programs. I'm happy to take whatever questions you may have.
Chancellor.
Yep, I have a question on completions. How do we define completions?
Whether they received the degree.
So I would challenge this, and not for today, but for the team. I think completion should be based upon what the student defines it as. So if we have somebody with a nursing degree who's coming back to our community college to take one course to remain compliant in their discipline, and they start and finish that course, to me, that counts as a completion. Because that student came back to finish what they started, so to say. And as we get into more stackable credentials, micro credentials, programs, and things that President Bernal's talking about, if somebody comes here to get something and they leave with it, to me, check. That's an opinion, but I think we should talk about that.
Chair Gway, I wonder, just thinking out loud, I think there's a way to categorize the definitions of these success metrics based on the entities that we're dealing with. So there are federal definitions for graduation completions that we have no say. That's the U.S. Department of Education. I think there are state definitions that I believe the state is closely aligned with that. And I think there's an opportunity for CSU to have a more broad-based set of definitions to capture all of the learners that we serve.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if there's 40,000 or how many others, they're not coming here to get a degree. They're coming here for something. If they've left with it, I don't want to post that as a deficiency. I want to post that as a success, right? So I'll leave it to the institutional leadership and the system office and the great minds to figure that out. But I probably 3 to 5 buckets of student experience for successful completion. Because not everyone's coming to get a degree is my point.
I completely agree with that. And I feel like the more breakdown we could get, the better. For example, if under completions or enrollment rather, we're talking about high school students who are taking college credit courses, that's a great thing to track, right? So to have that broken out so that we could just see on a year-to-year basis how we're doing in terms of expanding those programs, and even better if it's possible to follow those students, that would give us a lot of good information.
Yeah, and I'll add, I think the frustration on the part of our institutions who I believe we all recognize they do tremendous work. You know, the federal definitions of graduation and completion are very narrow, right? It's first time, full time. It's first time, full time. So if you're a returning student to college, you're not captured in that metric, right? And we have a massive number of part-time and returning students across all of CSC. You look at Charter Oak, CT State, 65% part-time students. They are not captured in the federal definitions. I think there's opportunities to strategically tell our story to state government and say, if you're going to judge us, you got to judge us on everyone we serve and also everyone who's succeeding and completing. And to your point, Chair Gway, people who are leaving with something, completed course, a credential, what have you.
You know, I think this goes back to the conversation we were having at our strategic offsite, which is, you know, who are we trying to be? What are we trying to achieve? And then let's make sure we tell that story and measure, against that success. I think this is all circling, around that, really calls out to that attention of let's be really intentional and clear about the value that we're delivering so that we can measure and drive that. And sounds like we have some people we have to owe some specific numbers to the federal government or the state, but that's still, I believe, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that still leaves room for us to say, well, we're doing that, but also look at all these other great things that we're doing, because to the point, that Chair Gui was saying, we have a lot of people that we're serving, and I think, Chancellor Maduka, I think you were saying the same thing. We have a lot of people we're serving that may not fit into those traditional buckets, but that's still hugely valuable, and we got to make sure we're telling that story.
Good point.
So, Mr. Chairman, this has been a wonderful conversation. That concludes my report.
Yeah, and my only comments were looking at the retention and graduation rates. It's really impressive that, I think it's impressive, the universities are up 2%. But more importantly, the CT state graduation rate is up 40%. I think that's something that the CT state should let people know that here we are, we've got great programs and they're here for you. And look at our graduation rate is up 40%. I mean, you don't see that very often. So any other comments by other members before we move along? If not, no other comments on any other subject by members, I would move for a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all very much for your time and input.
Thank you.
Live
Thank you.
stream can be stopped.
Live stream has stopped. Thank you, folks.